live.
Yeah.
Hello. This is the Tiny Road to Yeshua. I'm George.
And Bonnie. Mwah. And it's Tuesday.
Tuesday,
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
Tuesday, 7 o'clock.
The topic tonight is 7.
Go ahead. I'm ready.
7. For some reason, I sat down and started looking at why in the world did I look up 7?
Hey, Marcia.
Well, don't know why I did, but I did. And it was kind of interesting the more I looked at it. So we're going to go over a few things tonight.
See that covering them all, so you're saying?
No, I'm not going to cover all the number 7. 7 in Hebrew is a reference to perfection and completion. Oh, Rich and Sandy.
Hey, Rich and Sandy.
They believe that number in the Tanakh, the Old Testament, represents fulfillment. Through the next few minutes, we're going to go over a number of places where the number 7 is stated. Now, we're going to hit a few of them fast enough where you might want to take a piece of paper and write down what verses I find them from and look them up yourself later on. We've only got about 12 or 16 or something like that. Here we go. Number 1. Genesis 2, 1 through 3.
Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, along with everything in them. On the seventh day, God was finished with his work, which he had made. So he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. God blessed the seventh day and separated it as holy, because on that day God rested from all his work which he had created, so that it itself could produce.
God stopped his work and rested on the seventh day. That is why the day of rest is called Shabbat. It's behind time. It's not doing the same thing I'm doing. It's like Chinese again.
See, that's better. It looks good to me now. Maybe it's just what's catching.
Okay, why the day of rest is called Shabbat? No, that's behind time. Dang.
No, it's not.
The Hebrew word Shabbat means rest. The Hebrew ruling is for giving the land rest is in the 7th year is called Shabbat. That's called remission. That word means remission. And they would give work for 6 years with their crops, and on the 7th year they wouldn't plant crops to give it a year of rest. And they call that Shemitah. I hope that's how you pronounce it. And number 3, the year of Yavel, we call it Jubilee. That's when both the land and the possessions come after 7 years of Shemitah. Now, they have 7 years to give it a year of rest. After 7 of those, all the land and all the people that they had sold into a working commitment, and some people called it slavery for 49 years. After 49 years, on the 50th year, they would set them all free and give the land back to the people that originally owned it. In other words, they were almost like leasing them.
Times 7.
7 times 7.
Gotcha.
That was the year of Jubilee or Yavol.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, now here's an interesting one. Howdy, Dallas.
Hi, Dallas. Hey, Robin.
Genesis 4:15. I want you to read that, honey.
4?
Genesis 4, verse 15.
Adonai answered him, therefore, whoever kills, and you said that's Cain, right?
That's Cain.
Okay. Will receive vengeance sevenfold. And Adonai put a sign on Cain, so that no one who found him would kill him.
Number 4. Sevenfold vengeance was to be taken on anyone who might kill Cain after he, Cain, was kicked out of the presence of Adam's family because he had murdered his brother. Now here's something that was kind of interesting when I studied it. Have you ever really noticed that Adonai, the Lord God, would have conversations with Cain and Abel about their sacrifices, and who knows what else they talked about? And that was after his family got kicked out of the Garden of Eden.
Huh.
That was interesting. All it is to me.
Yeah.
Number 5, Genesis 7:2.
Of every clean animal you are to take 7 couples, and of the animals that are not clean, 1 couple.
Noah took 7 pairs of clean animals in the ark. Number 6. Genesis 41:17 through 20. People tell me that they like it when she reads, so that's why I'm having to read all these.
17.
17 through 20.
41. Pharaoh said to Joseph, in my dream I stood at the edge of the river, and there came out of the river 7 cows, fat and sleek, and they began feeding in the swamp grass. After them came out of the river 7 more cows, poor, miserable-looking, and lean. I've never seen such bad-looking cows in all the land of Egypt. Then the lean and miserable-looking cows ate up the first 7 fat cows.
This is number 6. And 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine is what the interpretation of Pharaoh's dream was, with the 7 fat cows and 7 lean ones.
Hey, Paula.
7. The blood of a sin offering was to be sprinkled 7 times before Adonai. That's found in Leviticus 4:3 through 4, 3 and 4. Number 8. Leviticus 13:5 and 6.
Five and 6. On the 7th day, the Kohen, which you said was the high priest, is to examine him again, and if the sore appears the same as before and has not spread on the skin, then the Kohen is to isolate him for 7 more days. On the 7th day, the Kohen is to examine him again, and if the sores have faded and hasn't spread on the skin, then the Kohen is to declare him clean. It is only a scab, so he is to wash his clothes and be clean.
That's number 8. The leper was to appear before the priest on the 7th day to be examined, and then he would be pronounced he was clean.
That's okay.
Facebook's sending me some message. You can't see it, but I can. At least I don't think you can.
That's right.
Okay, number 9. The festival of Pesach, Passover, the feast which celebrates the exodus of the Hebrew nation from Egypt. Number 10. The festival of Shabbat, Pentecost. It stands for the Feast of Weeks. This comes 7 weeks after Passover. Both at the Sukkot, the Passover, and the Shabbat, the Pentecost, are festivals to be celebrated before God, not just anywhere, but in Jerusalem. Both last for 7 days of celebration. At both, 7 lambs are offered to Adonai. You can find that in Leviticus 23.
And that's a lamb a day.
Lamb a day. Number 11. If Israel is, Leviticus 26:18.
Okay. If these things don't make you listen to me, then I will discipline you 7 times over for your sins. That doesn't sound like fun.
If Israel is unrepentant, she will be punished 7-fold for her sins. Number 12. Jericho fell after Israel marched around the city 7 times, and 7 priests blew 7 shofars, or 7 trumpets. And you find that in Joshua 6, 14 through 15. 4 through 15. And number 13. Solomon built the first temple in 7 years. 1 Kings 6:38. Okay, number 14. In 2 Kings 4:32 through 35, would you find that? That's the one that. 2 Kings 4:32 through 35. You read that the other day.
Yeah, I'm going to pull one of these markers. 2 Kings
4:32 through 35.
When Elisha reached the house, there was a child. There the child was, dead and laid on the bed. He went in, shut the door on the 2 of them, and prayed to Adonai. Then he got up on the bed and lay on top of the child, putting his mouth on his mouth, his eyes on his eyes, and his hands on his hands. He stretched himself out on the child. Its flesh began to grow warm. Then he went down, walked around the house a while, went back up and stretched himself out on the child again. The child sneezed 7 times, then opened his eyes.
See, she read where Elijah went to a Shemite woman's son who had died. Put everybody out of the room. He lay on top of the bed with the boy on top of him, mouth to mouth, eye to eye, hand in hand, and prayed for him. And he became warm. He got up out of the bed, walked around a while, but the boy just got warm. So Elijah lay on top of him the second time, mouth to mouth, eye to eye, hand in hand. And Scripture says the boy sneezed 7 times. And then he opened his eyes.
Never saw that before.
Number 15. Isaiah number 4.
No, we're just going to read that part. Okay. On that day, 7 women will grab hold of one man and say, "We will supply our own food and wear our own clothes. Just let us bear your name. Take away our disgrace." 4:1.
After Israel, male population had been decimated. 7 women are to take a hold of one man. And the reason that's said is because in Israel, Isaiah wrote was after Jerusalem was ruined and Judah had fallen by bringing their own disgrace by their own disobedience. But the male population, the population of Israel, had to replenish. So 7 women would take a hold of 1 man. Now, to me, that was very, very interesting. That God put it out there that they could do that. All right, that was 15. 16. You got it? Yep. Ezekiel 43, 25 through 27.
Every day for 7 days you are to prepare a goat as a sin offering. They are also to prepare a young bull and a ram from the flock without defect. For 7 days they are to make atonement for the altar and cleanse it. In this way they are to consecrate it. 27, right?
Yes.
When the days are over, then on the 8th day and afterwards, the Kohanim will present your burnt offerings on the altar and your peace offerings, and I will accept you, says Adonai Elohim.
16. For 7 days you are to prepare a goat as a sin offering. And 17. For 7 days you are to make atonement for the altar and cleanse it with the blood of those animals. Now that's interesting. So,
work.
When you study the book of the Revelation that we were talking about for the last few weeks, you should see where that number represents fullness and it stands for completion. Not confusion, like most people look at the book of the Revelation. The book speaks of God's perfection and finality of Adonai's coming judgment on mankind. In just the book of the Revelation, John wrote about 7 messianic communities, 7 spirits, 7 gold menorahs, and that was in verse 12. 7 stars in verse 16. 7 flaming torches, 4 verse 5. 7 seals, 5 verse 1. Lamb with 7 horns and 7 eyes, 5 verse 6. 7 angels and 7 shofars, or 7 trumpets, 8 verse 2. 7 thunders, 10 verse 3. A dragon with 7 crowns and on his 7 heads, 12 verse 3. 7 hills and 7 kings, 17, 9, and 10. 7 angels with 7 last plagues in 7 gold bowls, 15, 1 through 7. And we spoke last couple of weeks about the 7 messianic communities. Now the interesting thing is, it states that either number 7 or the 7th appear around 60 times in just the book of the Revelation.
Wow.
Here's our last statement about 7. Hebrews, Jews, or Judaism, I'll get it right sooner or later, recognize archangels. Michael, we called him Michael. Gabriel, we call him Gabriel. Raphael, we call him Raphael. Now I don't know what the other pronunciations are. Uriel, Suriel, Phanuel, and Yechiel. Guess what? They acknowledge and recognize 7 archangels.
There's that 7 again.
There's that 7 again.
There's that 7 again.
That's a good comment. Now tell me, the number 7. Tell me the number 7 isn't significant to Adonai and the completion to bring an understanding in God's Word.
Seems pretty important to me.
Did to me too. Can't really know why I started looking that stuff up, but it was interesting to study and look at it. I'm going to take a second break.
Take a second break.
There's my second.
Hey, George.
George,
our audience is here.
George just walked in. He's a professor, he's a teacher, and he's tardy.
Had to make him stay after school.
Yes, he's got to stay after school and write 1,000 times on the board. All right, I went over those, and we went over them, and we thought those were interesting in the studying of 7. And then I got this letter from this preacher, and there was a statement on there, and it got me thinking. And I wrote, "Do you trust God? Do you trust God?" That sounds like one of those duh statements, doesn't it?
It does, but
think about it.
it's a little more complicated.
How far do you trust Him? Or do you really trust Him at all? We know the usual comeback is, I trust Him to heal me. Or for you to get the best in this life. Like wisdom or wealth. Why you trust Him with your life. As long as it's good. And some would even have to say great. Why then it must be God.
Of course.
Now there's always an ulterior motive when I say this.
You?
How about if you are like Micah, in 1 Kings 22, 19 through 28. My sweetie's going to read that.
Micah continued, "Therefore hear the word of Adonai. I saw Adonai sitting on his throne, with the whole army of heaven standing by him on his right and on his left. Adonai asked, who will entice," now you said that's Ahab. Okay, "to go up to his death at Ramoth Gilead?" One of them said, "Do it this way," and another, "Do it that way." Then a spirit stepped up, stood in front of Adonai, and said, "I will entice him." Adonai asked, "How?" He answered, "I will go and be a deceiving spirit in the mouths of all his prophets." Adonai said, "You will succeed in enticing him. Go and do it." So now Adonai has put a deceiving spirit in the mouths of all these prophets of yours. Meanwhile, Adonai has ordained disaster for you. Doesn't sound like fun at all right now. Then Tezkiah, the son of Canaan, came up, slapped Micah in the face, and said, "And how did the spirit of Adonai leave me to speak to you?" Micah said, "You'll find out on the day you go into an inside room trying to hide." The king of Israel said, "Seize Micah and take him back to Ammon, the governor of the city, and Joash, the king's son. Say, the king says to put this man in prison and feed him only bread and water, and not much of that, until I return in peace." Micah said, "If you return in peace at all, Adonai has not spoken through me." Then he added, "Did you hear me, you people, all of you?"
Now, once she read that, Did anybody notice that it says, so now Adonai has put a deceiving spirit in the mouths of the prophets for Ahab? He didn't put the truth into their mouths. He put a deceiving spirit into their mouth. Because he knew Ahab was going to go die. But anyway, that's not what we're going to talk about. I just noticed that. All right. He told the king the truth. Micah told the king the truth and was put in prison, given only bread and water because he told the truth. And the king of Israel didn't like it. Micah the prophet didn't tell Ahab what all the other prophets that had what we just said, the lying spirits put in them. He didn't what all the other prophets told him. And King Ahab became angry. Now, we can't look at it in the king's point of view, but as Micah and what happened to him for telling the truth. Would you say that because Micah trusted and did what Adonai wanted him to, something went wrong? Maybe you believe that Micah should have used a different approach. Then maybe he wouldn't have to go have that and spend that time with only bread and water in that beautiful place called prison.
Yeah, not quite like today.
We should realize that prison back then was a lot different than they are now. Sure, now as they are still away from society, but now they get medical care, 3 meals, a bed to sleep in. Most have TV rooms. Some maybe even have TVs in their cells, I don't know. They have weight rooms, basketball courts, everything but a golf country club for what? Doing evil against some other person or society. Yet a veteran who served his country doesn't get anything close to that. But hey, we must feel sorry because they're locked up for doing evil. How about the person they killed? The girl they raped? Where's their justice? Maybe he was a drug dealer and got caught. How many lives did he ruin, yet he deserves a room to exercise in? Why? No, we must feel sorry for that drug dealer, that killer, or the rapist. Why? Because he got caught. And now they are not loose to deal, kill, or rape society anymore. When he was in that prison, it wasn't that luxury. Mm-mm. And some people say, well, he's locked up, so it's not really luxury. Well, it is compared to what they used to have to do.
Well, yeah, where he was.
Why we must feed him 3 good meals while the homeless starve. Make it comfortable for their sleeping while people freeze to death because of the cold. Give them the opportunity to exercise and become strong while they feed. When the homeless do get stuff, they don't always feed them the right stuff, so society becomes weak and fat. So let me bring up that statement again. Do you trust God? When you trust Him, is it only for what you like, or when things do come your way, do you ever say, okay, God, I'm in your hands, but what if it's not to your liking? Like Micah. I don't think he really wanted bread and water. Is it really God? Because we all know and always do what's right or what's best. Right. In the last few years, I've started to look at things totally different. Can't really explain it, just different. And who is to say my differences just might be other people's norm? Who knows?
Hard to say. Hard to say.
I guess as far as I'm concerned, I guess my main thought is, do I trust God? And do what I'm supposed to do without asking why?
Before you finish that thing, because that's a good thought to end with. When we were reading this, it said Micah was to get bread and water, and not much of it, that's what it says, until I return in peace.
Well, he didn't return in peace.
And Micah said, if you return in peace at all. And from what you've told me in studying, Ahab never came back.
Ahab never comes back.
Ahab was killed.
He gets shot with an arrow and he dies.
So how long was Micah
back.
in prison?
Forever.
Yeah, because if the king can't rescind his order, well, I guess a new king could. But yeah, I remember reading this, that he wasn't coming back. So this was a sentence.
Life sentences, as far
as it sounds there.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what you talk about. Do you trust God?
I guess my main thought is, do I trust God and do what I'm supposed to do and ask and not ask without asking why? So really, our question is, do you trust God? And if you say yes, then we ask why. Why do you trust God? If you were trusting God and you were put in prison for trusting Him and given only bread and water, would you be singing God's praises? Would you think you did something wrong because you were given only bread and water? Was it your fault you were in there? Micah knew what was coming. And he did it. Because God put that on him.
Yeah. Saying that you do and acting on it is two different things.
Yeah.
A lot
of people show a lot of spirituality when times are good. And then when times are bad, there's other people that show a lot of spirituality to get good. But think about Micah. He did God's work. Was given bread and water in prison. It's an interesting thought. Do you trust God enough? Kind of a short one tonight. Had a lot of interesting topics with 7 and the readings, all of it. I really thought it was interesting about Cain and Abel, what we talked. The interesting sentence there. Do you trust God? The easy answer is yes, I do.
It's a little more to it than just that one easy question.
It's a lot more to trusting than just listening. Because if you listen, if you learn something and never use it, then what good is it? I think we said that last week.
I think you said
something
that
like
too.
that. Anyway, next week we are going to talk about some things a bunch of little things that we put together.
A bunch of little things that you put together.
Yes, we got inspiration by a letter I received or a begging concept from some preacher that wants me to send money to all the time. And then we've got a little talk about little situation here and a little situation there. And just about 4 things that I feel that I have to bring out in the open. Whether it's bringing out in the open or just babbling about it, it's 2 different things, but it's there. And should be kind of interesting.
Always is.
Do you know we've been doing this for 57 weeks? 57 times they come up with topics. I hope they're interesting to you people, because a lot of them, people ask me where I come up with them, and there's a lot of times I can't really say I come up with them. Or at least I don't know where I get the message or where I get the thoughts from or where I get the readings from. Things pop into my head. Things pop into her head. Things pop into George's head. That's the old gentleman that sits across the country. It's hard to get him out of his head, though. But he knows I'm joking. And you know something? We're going on vacation 1st of May for 4 months. We'll be out traveling in our little motorhome. And we're going to try to have one every Tuesday. Mm-hmm. God willing, the creek don't rise. See you next week. And thank you for all your...
Thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of this.
And I would have put out a notice this morning that we were going to have this tonight. And I usually do it at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning when I get up. But I hurt my back last night a little bit. And I took a pain pill. And I slept till 7:30. I haven't done that in years. So, hopefully next week I'll be smart enough and healed enough to be able to give you a little kickstart on Tuesday morning. And I'll try to give you a little kickstart during the week. Love you guys.
Have a good week. Have a blessed Easter on Sunday.
That's right. Easter Sunday coming up.
So,
You'd think I'd talk about that kind of stuff. But I didn't. Oh my goodness.
Have an awesome week, guys.
I might have to think about that one for next Tuesday.
Be well. You too, Dave.
And have fun.
We
God
will.
bless.
See you next Tuesday.
See you.